Thank you so much for joining us, Jonathan. Truly a pleasure to have you on Brand Equity.
It's a lovely, lovely privilege to be here. Thank you.
You're the mastermind behind the liquid approach that Coca-Cola now is following as their creative mandate. If you can throw some light on how you stumbled upon the fact that the liquid approach is the way ahead, and how you got that together and how it's been working for you.
So 12 months ago, I got a team of 40 people from around the world in Atlanta for a week, and together we sweated every aspect of the company's business and what we knew was happening in future states. The approach works in two ways. First of all, it inspires the world's greatest creative minds to want to work on the Coca-Cola Company brands. Secondly, it guides our internal marketing teams to force themselves to think outside of the traditional media box. And the final way that it works is every month I'm sharing best-in-class examples from around the Coca-Cola Company system with all of the markets about how Japan are implementing it and how India are implementing it.
Given the fact that you're really looking at great ideas, and ideas are today coming from multiple places and not essentially the traditional agency on record, how do you think the relationship between the client and the agency is evolving, and how do you foresee the future?
I do believe that advertising agencies have to completely stop focusing on traditional media as a creative start point. And so I always say to my advertising agency partners, and I encourage my different business units around the world, tell the advertising agency that you're not interested in seeing a script. You want a big idea, you want a big conversation, you want a big cultural platform, you want a big event, and then once you've got all of that going, now let's take a look at what the TV script looks like. And if advertising agencies don't rise to that challenge and don't really start to focus on other forms of expressing the idea, then they're going to make themselves redundant. I don't want the advertising agencies to make themselves redundant, but what I do want them to do is reinvent the creative focus and the creative energy.
Right. So do you actually see a relationship as it stands today between a client and an agency diffusing over the next few years, and really you basically get into bed with the person who has the best idea? So really infidelity is in.
I do believe in remaining fiercely loyal to my existing roster of agencies, but I don't believe in being blind, faithfully blind also. So there are occasions where you have to step outside the current roster, because the current roster isn't, in our belief, the freshest source of ideas and inspiration. But there are agencies that are transforming themselves in such a short space of time. So Wyden Kennedy would be one example. They changed their entire structure. They brought in some of the world's most recognized digital strategists in Ian Tate and Rennie Gleeson. And Ian Tate and Rennie Gleeson were charged with recruiting fantastic talent into the Wyden network. And then literally straight on the back of that, we've got Old Spice, which is one of the world's most celebrated digital campaigns. We've got Right the Future, Nike's World Cup campaign, which was another one of the world's most celebrated digital platforms. So agencies can reinvent themselves, but they have to reinvent themselves at the top, and they have to attract the best talent. Agencies like that who do so, I'm always going to want to stay loyal to. I'm always going to want to stay faithful to.
The most iconic piece of advertising the Indian market has seen from Coca-Cola would be that the campaign that read Thanda Matlab Coca-Cola. After that, while the advertising is no doubt very refreshing, it hasn't seemed to meet the same, it hasn't kept up to the same standard. But Pepsi came back with a very good response when the World Cup happened last year with, Change the Game. Yeah. So, creatively, as of now, Pepsi seems to at least attempt to be, pushing the envelope a lot more than Coke is.
I do agree with that, and you sound like my boss's boss. So George Rapodi would say exactly the same thing. He's a global CMO, and he's like, Jonathan, I want you to really work with the Indian BU and get the whole country talking about the creativity of brand Coca-Cola. That's why I'm here. That's the relationship that I've got. It's not that Open Happiness can't do it. Open Happiness can do it.
Do you think the problem with a brand like Coca-Cola is that, you have a theme called Open Happiness, which is a global theme,
yes.
and then, of course, you're implementing it locally.
Yes.
Isn't it restricting in a way that, you have to follow this particular brief and think out of the box, but in the box of Open Happiness?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is a tight brief. It is a tight brief. But it's a big, fertile brief as well. It would be wrong if any creative in India or any of my markets said that I was putting them in a straitjacket, because that would be awful. Then the idea is not big enough for a start. But if they say, Jonathan, you put me in a box, I'm like, yes, I have put you in a box. Now you make that box as brilliant and as dynamic and as culturally significant as possible. So there is a difference, because I'm not mandating executions, but I am mandating a kind of philosophy for the brand, and I think that that's right.
Right. I have another question on why Coca-Cola doesn't believe in diversifying into foods.
That's a really good question, and it's a question that sometimes our shareholders will ask of the company. The opportunity for growth in the non-alcoholic beverage sector is so big, because of the emerging middle classes all over the world, that we are truly confident and actually on track to deliver this ambition of doubling the size of our business. Now, foods and snacks wouldn't act as a accelerator to that growth momentum. Now, we might get to 2020 having doubled the size of the business, and we'll take another look at the potential of the beverage category. If the potential of the beverage category is that we can double that again, then foods and snacks would play no role in that. But in 2020, if the potential of the beverage category doesn't do that, then we may look at other sources of growth.
Great talking to you, Jonathan. Lovely to meet you.
It was lovely to meet you. Thank you very, very much for your time.